Did I see Trump at the UN? No. Did I hear that he complained about the cost of upgrading the UN building? Yes. Business owner, educator, and lifelong observer of politics and economics, making sense of complex issues. So, my immediate thought there was, I know there's no, this is going off on a tangent a little bit. I know there's no real support for the idea of moving the United Nations, right? But it has been floated. It has been put out there by more radical elements. I can't remember. I always forget this guy's name. But some of the suggestions, you believe it or not, some of the suggestions for a new UN headquarters are North Africa, Shanghai. So you would think if it was going to be somewhere, it'd be like, you know, Switzerland or something. But yeah, those are the two. But it's not going to happen. I mean, so, but I was thinking that when Trump was complaining about the cost of the United Nations, and I was thinking, well, be careful, you know, they might just move, but they won't. But so, no, I didn't see any of the other statements, but I just generally I saw a TikTok of a guy that said basically what Trump said at the, who is that guy? Because he does really good.
Peace Prize, and then immediately
oh, here it is. I got it right here.
Country in the world.
What's his name? Let's discuss something. Wow, he's got 400,000 followers. But I think he's fairly against Trump. But I still listen to him because, you know, you got to look at both sides. So, right, it says Steelman USA. Hey, Steelman USA, do you know about the US steel deal with Nippon Steel? I agree with you. He was right there. But he did something straight out of the CCP playbook, saying that's never been done by a US president. But it's been done by premiers of China and a couple of other people around the world. He demanded that when a private company in Japan bought a private company in the US, that when that deal goes through, that if they ever make big decisions about that company, rebranding, headquarter locations, investments, board membership, they have to go through the president. Pretty weird, huh? A good idea. Pretty CCP. But yeah, Trump is right. He's right there. Wrong on a lot of things, but right there. Okay. Well, I mean, let's be honest about it. This is where I draw this, right? And these are not my opinions. Xi Jinping said, we are the Communist Party. We have a socialist country and we run a parallel mixed economy, right? Well, that's what we used to do. That's what America used to be. That's what Australia used to be. That's what Europe used to be. We used to be mixed economies too. Not like the CCP and the broader whole country of China, but the SEZs, the special economic zones, where they are basically, in principle, little capitalist areas that have some socialist leaning policies mixed in with it. I mean, obviously plus China, but even the law, no, I was going to say Chinese laws, but even the laws are different there. So, you know, we could do that. I agree with that stuff. Never happened. It never happened. It did happen. It did happen. GI Bill, the creation of the highway infrastructure, the New Deal. These are all mixed economics We did it until about the 1980s. What prime minister did this? Oh, are you guys talking to each other? Oh, I think the Canadians are talking to each other. Imagine if the Canadians in my comments get into a fight. That would be so un-Canadian. Do you say un-Canadian or non-Canadian? We say un-Australian, un-American, un-Canadian. I don't know, it just sounds wrong. Anything negative about Canada just sounds wrong. Non-Canuck. I like that. No, so I'm not talking, that's in relation to the UN, right? And Trump was talking today. No, I'm not going to talk about that. But apparently he's in great shape. And fortunately, because the escalator didn't work. What will happen to your account? Yeah, so what I'm going to do so this is what I'm confident about just regarding the app. What I'm confident about is that it will still be completely integrated with global TikTok as it is now. So the way that, is it called CDNs? Copy videos from from outside the US and send them to TikTok in the US. That will still happen. I'm confident of that. However, what I am concerned about is that it may mean that there's a little bit more of a barrier of my stuff getting through, or TikTok may not recognize me. Because if you don't know how I have this set up, I have a VPN. I also have a US phone number and a US bank, and all the things in the background of my TikTok show me to be in the US. That is not the case for most people that are, even Americans that are in Japan and other countries doing their TikToks. They've got their TikTok app that they got in the US, but now they're overseas. I don't have that. I have my global video community app from Japan. So if that becomes inoperable, that won't become, this is getting complicated already. The app that I'm on won't degrade. Yours will. People that have taken the US downloaded App Store app and are living abroad now, their app will degrade and won't be updated and will become unusable. Mine won't, because my app that I'm using right now to talk to you is not affected by any of this. What I am concerned about is that in the back end of my account, TikTok will be confused as to why I'm not on the TikTok US app, and therefore I have a Apple Store account that I've made, and I will dedicate a single device to that US app, and I'll download it and do that. But I'm going to do that as late as possible, because I just, out of curiosity, I want to see what happens. And the new app's not even available yet, as far as I know. So I'll kind of be relying on you to do that for me. Thank you, Debbie Jane, and welcome. So yeah, that's interesting, you know, how that's going to play out for people that are not like me and have all these things set up, how they will be able to. I mean, I guess if people are in Japan and they're from the US, or they're in any country, they're still got their Apple Store or their App Store in the US, so they can just download it. Yeah, of course. I don't download this app or update this app from the US App Store, but I will if it becomes, you know, if it becomes necessary. All right, so one of the things I wanted to talk about, if people are, oh, look at that, I managed to get from 60 people down to 30. There we go. What I want to talk about briefly, because it came up somehow in my life, and it hasn't been talked about for a long time. And I thought, hi, Chino Marino, I would talk about it briefly today, and that is UBI. And then somebody said to me yesterday, what's UBI? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure most people know what UBI, I think it was Bob. And UBI is Universal Basic Income. And if you don't know what that is, in the most simplest sense, it's a payment of cash money with no strings attached to every single person in the country just for being a citizen. That's what a UBI is. Then there are various versions of it and various ways that it's... Oh, hi, Ava. I've got lots of super fans. I didn't know I had so many super fans. Okay. And so there are different names and there are different versions, and I just wanted to bring it up because, to be honest, I'm undecided. So this will be something that, oh, thank you for joining my fan club. It'll be something that I'm talking about today, having not actually firmly made an opinion on it, and therefore I'm open to discussion about it. So I will just sort of share with you what that is. Hi, Ocean. Haven't seen you for a long time. So Universal Basic Income has been around for a very long time. Thomas Paine actually was one of the people that considered it. And then my old favorite economist, Milton Friedman, proposed a, what do you call it? A negative income tax, which I think is a pretty cool name, because it kind of would appeal to those people that don't like the idea of welfare. So if we survey, I think there was a survey done of the country about a UBI, and about 50-something% were for it, but 76% of Republicans were opposed to it. And when Andrew Yang changed the name to from UBI to a freedom dividend, or someone did, and interviewed people, the Republican support immediately went up. Like it shifted like 10 points back in favor of it. So I would say just generally there's support of around 50-60% for a UBI in the United States. And Milton Friedman, famously right-wing economist, thought that it was a good idea. Then I think Nixon did something, and then there was Alaska. Now, if you don't know what a UBI is, probably the closest real version that I can give you is the, what's it called? The Alaska Permanent Fund? Does that sound right? So every Alaskan citizen, no matter what their income, gets a dividend from the state for the earnings that the state has made in that year, which I kind of think of as something being very close to what Andrew Yang was saying as a dividend payment, rather than just a fixed amount, that it would be based on maybe something like GDP, to keep it simple. If the GDP was this, then every citizen got this as a dividend, as if you owned shares in the United States, is probably a simple way to put it. And that's kind of how I would sell it if I was selling it. I would say it's a share in the United States. And then what I want to talk about with this is the psychology of it. Obviously, because it's a very emotional thing. Obviously, there's a lot of technical aspects to it, but as far as just the general for and against, it's actually very emotional how people respond to it. And I'm going to give you what you already predict is the biggest opposition to it, and that is that, why are we going to pay people to not work? That's stupid. You don't want to pay people to do nothing, and nobody likes that. And I was thinking about that yesterday, and I was thinking, I don't have a problem, and this has been a feeling of mine for a long time. I don't have a problem with not working, with people not working and getting money for doing nothing. That doesn't really bother me. And I was trying to think, why doesn't it bother me? And I looked it up. And this, in psychology, it's called conditional cooperation. People's instinctive fairness norm is a resentment of free riders. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. You know, I hate it when people push in front of me in a line, or somebody gets something and if I see a guy driving a Lamborghini, I'm jealous. Not because I want a Lamborghini, I just want to have that much money that I could buy one if I wanted one. So I understand that. But as far as people not working, I've always understood that as a cost. Does that make sense? Like, it's a cost to them. So if it's like I work for myself, and the more I work, the more money I get. The less I work, the less money I get. I'm motivated to work. And somebody who doesn't want money and doesn't want to work, I kind of feel sorry for them in a sense. That I'll use this example because growing up in Australia, big surfing culture, right? And every year or every election, it was always debated about how we got because we have a pretty good welfare state in Australia. You can get, we don't have unemployment insurance. If you lose your job or you can't find a job, you're guaranteed a welfare payment from the government. You go into the government office and you apply for it and they give it to you. It's pretty straightforward. They make you jump through hoops, but basically you can go surfing every day and still get some cash. And people would always criticize that. These guys are going surfing all day and I have to go to work every day. I'm like, you're lucky. That's great that you get to go to work every day. You're not only fully integrated into society, you're becoming something. You're growing into the person you will become, and you're putting money away, and you're living a better lifestyle than those guys who get a couple of $100 from the government every month. And so, yes, you drive past them on the way to work and they're hitting the brake and having a great time, but in their life overall, on the macro version of it, there will be an opportunity cost to them for having done that. And I think, why do I feel like that? Why do I think like that? And other people just think it's not fair. And I think it's because we learn that. I don't think it's human nature. I think it's learned behavior. So it's human nature to be jealous, maybe. But when I see that guy in a Lamborghini, I don't resent him at all. I'm jealous of him, but I don't resent him. I don't wish ill upon him. I wish he'd share it a little bit more, but I accept it. And when I see the guys hitting the brake as I drive to work, I don't resent them for that. And I think there is a sense of that we teach people, or we don't teach them, that there is a cost to everything. And I think if we taught that at an early age, on a basic level, that everything you do, I mean, we say it, we have that expression in our society, that everything has a cost. There's no such thing as a free lunch. We have these expressions, but we don't extrapolate them into, a real understanding of what people are doing in our culture. I think that's what I'm getting at. So for me, in that sense, I'm not opposed to UBI as a way of sharing the wealth of the country with people who choose not to contribute to it. And that's the psychological side. The other side of it for me is the cost of making them jump through hoops is a lot. And I wonder, it's a leaky bucket argument. How much cash does the government spend on chasing up people who don't want to work? Right? And this may be a very Australian argument, I don't know. But because we do have this welfare system and because we do have surfing, there are a lot of guys that just want to go surfing every day. And there was a lot of discussion constantly about this. We've got to make these people get jobs. They can't just go surfing every day. And so they built in all these steps that you had to do. You had to go in person, and you had to attend a meeting, and you had to get a diary, and you had to go to interviews. And business people ended up complaining that they were getting these people coming for interviews that didn't want jobs, just so that they could stamp, oh yeah, okay, I came for the interview, can you just stamp my form so that when I go to hand it in, I'll get my payment? And it just became farcical. If people are not going to work, they're not going to work. The other side also, for me, is that those guys might become really top world surfers. And that's good advertising for the country. That's great for them. Of course, 1 in a million will. But, let the people that want to be artists, musicians, surfers, athletes, let them try. Give them support through a universal basic income. And the statistics on this back it up. The statistics show that in places where they've done this, they've done it in the US, a couple of trials, they've done it in Finland and other places, they've done it in Africa, in every country except the US. In every country where they've tried this, employment did not decrease. And the only place it did decrease was in the US, and it only decreased among secondary earners, not primary earners. So it decreased among students, and it decreased amongst housewives. And you know what the upside of that is? Less stress. Less stress for students, less stress for housewives to be concerned about making extra money to, add to their budgets. And that generally, what they found in all countries was that mental health improved. And if we were to look at what is wrong with our society right now, thank you, Debbie Jane. What is wrong with our society right now is my favorite word of the year, malaise. And it's not people from Malaysia. It's MALAISE. It's this idea that people see no hope, that they see no future for them, and that actually in the countries where they did bring in this UBI, it gave people a sense of, okay, I can go and try these others. I can try to be a world surfer. I can try to be a musician. I can start my own business. I'm not so scared. And I can actually tell you from my own experience, though, one of the reasons I don't have a whole bunch of schools, instead, the most I had was 2. The reason I haven't done it is just the cost of doing it and the fear that the burn rate will be too much. I should have got investors. I'll tell you that story one time. But I should have got investors and I didn't. And starting your own business sometimes just requires you to know that you've got someone behind you that's it's okay, you're gonna get that $500 next week from the government that is gonna help you through. These things actually help promote greater growth. That's the way I see it. So counter arguments, I'm all ears. Maybe, Ava, I did learn to think, but I think, as I've told you a lot, I grew up in hanging out with union people. And, these guys were no angels. I'm not saying that, my dad's friends were rough and tumble guys, ex-military, working for the government or working in, mining and things like this, but union guys. And the thing about the union was that when someone was down, they were supportive. You know, they didn't. They an Australian expression, bitched and moaned, is what they did. They complained about him. Oh, that guy. We don't say guy. We say bloke. That bloke. You know, he drinks too much. He never turns up to work. He just got fired. But you know, they would all chip in and support him. They would always be there to support anyone that was going through anything difficult. And I saw that all the time. And I think that, you know, I learned from an early age not to, you know, not to look at the guy surfing the break as a freeloader. I think I learned to think of him as someone that maybe hasn't had the opportunity to do the things I've done, or maybe hasn't had the education or the family life to try different things, or, you know, to have the motivation to go and work. Or maybe he just really loves surfing so much that that's all he can think about. And I'm willing to accept that. And I think probably, I mean, if you could put a cap on it, maybe to 25 or 30 or something, and say, you know, if you haven't made it by then, you know, we're going to start cutting your UBI or something. But I just think, you know, just don't go straight to, it's not fair. I have to go to work and he doesn't. I don't know. I don't have that. I mean, I have jealousy, but I'm not jealous of people that don't have a job, right? I think that's it. I've still got that twitching under my eye. If anyone was here yesterday, thank you for that. People that looked that up for me, you're right. It is, it's, somebody said eat a banana. And you know what's really funny about that is that I do eat a banana every day until it got so hot in Japan. And so for the last probably 4 weeks, I haven't been buying bananas, because I would buy them. I'd buy a bunch of bananas and then like 3 days later, they're all rotten. And so I always eat bananas, even in summer, but it's been particularly hot this year with real lack of rain as well. And so I just stopped buying bananas, and it really could be potassium. So that was interesting. Plus I did change my multivitamin, so I've switched back to another multivitamin that I was taking. So thank you for that. Okay, so let's have a look at some comments, because I'm open. This is something I'm really open on. And remind me to come back and just talk about religion. Totally unrelated, but I was thinking about it today. Are we all aware? Oh, okay. No one gets free lunch, yeah. I don't know what sounds like my husband. I hope it's a good thing. As I go to say, what about our immigrant communities? The immigrant communities. Oh, okay. So, yeah, that's the other thing that people have said in their opposition to a UBI. Well, it wouldn't go to immigrants, as nothing does now anyway. You know, one of the things that's happening here in Japan, I'm going to see if I can tie this in. One of the things that the Japanese are complaining about, I talked about this yesterday, is that foreigners living in Japan are taking advantage of the healthcare system. They pay into it. But to be honest, I pay a lot for the three of us to have the tax. In Australia and other countries, when you have universal healthcare, you pay a levy on top of your taxes, right? In Australia, I think it's like 2 or 3%, and in Japan, it's something like that as well. So I pay basically health insurance, but it's unlimited what I get for that insurance. And I pay more than some people, and some people pay more than me. But we all get the same health insurance. And so they're complaining that foreigners are taking advantage. Like they've only been here a little while and they go straight in and get an operation, or they get all their teeth fixed, or things like that. And that's not fair. And in the US, you don't have that, but you have, it's not impala, because that's a kind of African deer, entala? It's something like that, which means that you get automatic emergency assistance. So if something happens to you in the workplace, or something happens to you on the street, or you collapse in some medical emergency, you will be provided with life-saving healthcare. Which, on another note, I don't call healthcare. That's just pretty much, you know, the last resort. So that's the only thing that undocumented people in the US get, as far as I understand it, right? They're not getting other stuff for free. If they collapse in the street, an undocumented person collapses in the street, yes, they get healthcare. I think that's pretty reasonable. And like I just said, I wouldn't really call that healthcare. I would call that basic human decency. And over here in Japan, of course, everybody's going to get that. But when I go to the doctor for a cold, or I have a cavity and I go to the dentist, I have to show my healthcare card. Nobody can just rock up and get that stuff for free. So that doesn't happen. So when you talk about the immigrant community, if they are permanent residents, they would be entitled to a UBI. If they're not, they wouldn't. Okay. We already have enough people committing fraud. Oh, that's it. So that was the other argument. Thank you, Ocean. About UBI, is that it actually, and this is why I think Milton Friedman and people like that and Nixon were kind of into it, and the libertarians are into it as well, because it simplifies everything. Instead of, you know, what's your income, and, you know, how much did you earn last year, what are you going to earn next year, and we're going to pay you this, and how many dependents, everybody just gets the same amount. And that actually makes it less likely that you commit fraud, because whether you're rich or poor, you get the same basic income from the government. And the way to fund that is through things like what Alaska does, where it's whatever Alaska earns, they share a portion of that with the country, with the people of the state, and then you could tie that in with the US as well. I mean, what Trump was talking about with regards to USAID, when he closed down USAID and said, I'm going to give you that money back, the money that didn't exist. We talked about that here, how that money doesn't exist. So he can't give it back to you because it's not there. But anyway, what he was proposing there is similar, in that I'm going to not give this money to someone else, I'm going to give it back to you. I mean, that's all it is. And what was another example? The tariffs. So if you're getting this massive tariff income, I'm going to share that tariff income with you, and you would get 1%. And everybody gets the same amount, whether you're rich or poor. So Ava says, you're making a lot of assumptions. Yeah, I do. I do. I'll tell you one thing. I don't know a lot about psychology, but I did read some Freud and Jung and others. And one of the things that I did learn in my life is that we are all hypocrites. And I will make assumptions, and I will also be extremely hypocritical. So, fair warning. in the US, people would be taking that money and also gaming the system. Yeah, I mean, it's the leaky bucket again. That is always going to happen. You know, that going off on a tangent, the interesting thing about the leaky bucket, and you will hear that a lot from people that are opposed to any kind of government stuff. Statistics show that the large corporations, which is mostly all that we have now, have just as leaky a bucket as the government does. So you know when they always talk about how business does it better? No, not necessarily. Okay. Let me see. If someone doesn't want to work when they can, sorry, no money for you. Yeah, I mean, that's our basic response, isn't it? That if you don't want to work, you don't get anything. I see it as if people don't want to work, they don't want to work, and we can make them work. We can force them to work, but there'll always be those holdouts. And what will they do? Perhaps criminality, perhaps live a really unhealthy lifestyle and end up costing us more in the future. Or maybe they'll turn around in a few years and go, oh man, I can't believe how much of my life I wasted doing nothing. I wish I hadn't done that, but now I'm at the bottom of it and I'll never crawl my way back up again. I don't want that to happen. Okay. But yeah, I think the big thing is, yes, immigrants do pay a lot of taxes that they don't get back. We all know about that now. Okay, they get free healthcare coming into the country. Right. Yeah. I think that they're going through something in the UK right now about this, because they have a similar system to Japan and Australia. And they also provide accommodation and things like this, that there are these laws in the UK that a city has to provide accommodation for people so that we don't have a homeless issue. And so because an immigrant, whether they're undocumented or not, is in the city, then the city is responsible for that person. So there are problems there. I mean, you know, ultimately, for me, when you talk about, okay, I'll let the cat out of the bag here. I am so pro-immigration that I'm almost open borders guy. Like I philosophically, in my brain, I don't want there to be any borders. And politically, I think that's very libertarian of me, and I'm not a libertarian. But I think that it is probably the most basic libertarian capitalistic position you could have, is that there are no borders and people just go where they're needed or where they want, which would create chaos. So I don't want that to happen. And the only reason I don't want there to be open borders is because we don't have the infrastructure to deal with it. This is what Germany is going through right now, and this is partly what the US has gone through, where you had a very porous border, certainly not open, but certainly fairly free-flowing, both the north and the south. Much more closed now. But that can overwhelm infrastructure, and infrastructure can help with dealing with the issues that people are against, like what's happening in the UK, where why are so many migrants going to the UK? Because that's where the work is. Why is there no work anywhere else? Why, if they get from Africa to Spain or from wherever they're coming to France, why is it that they all want to go to the UK? Because that's what the work is. So what do we need to do as a global community? We need to make sure that there are opportunities elsewhere and expand that instead of concentrating wealth in one place. So it's It's a structural problem. It's a systemic problem. It's not an immigration problem. It's a wealth distribution problem. Deanna, well done. And I will say, touche. Yes. You know, I had this argument with my mom once, a long, long time ago, when, you remember I talked about Pauline Hanson? When her first round in Australian politics, I had this argument with my mom about supporting refugees, like literal refugees from, I can't remember where it was from at that time. It might have been Iraq. I can't remember. But it was literal refugees, and Australia was looking at not letting them in or housing them offshore, and because of the cost. And my mum was opposed to it. And my mum had just bought a new sofa, and it was expensive. And I said, the difference to you as to whether we help these refugees or not is whether you bought that sofa this year or next year. That's all. It's so minimal. You pay so minimal amount of tax that it literally costs you next to nothing to support a refugee. Thank you for joining. So, you know, that was how I framed it to her. You know, you'll still get your new sofa, but you'll just get it next year instead of this year. And I don't think that's a huge cost to pay for helping, you know, refugees not drown in the Pacific Ocean. So would I open my home? Yes, I would. Only if everybody else was doing it. See, I'm a hypocrite. Another thing that came up for me just as I was looking at Japan today. Oh, thank you, Sherry Princess. I wasn't asking, but thank you. One of the things I do is I subscribe to a newsletter thing called Japan Today, and they send you headlines, and you click on them and I can see, it's like a newspaper. And one of the headlines was Japanese surveys showed that they are 60% or more opposed to Islam and immigrants of Islamic faith. And I immediately took that and went, no, you're just choosing one religion out of all of the religions that Japanese would respond to like that. And so let me explain that. So when you see a headline that says Japanese are fearful or concerned about Islam, that's not true. But it's also true. Japanese, generally are distrusting, concerned, don't like, worship. So any religion that requires overt practices like praying, devotion, sacrifice of something. I don't mean like literal sacrifices. I mean giving up something. And anything that requires you to you can't eat this, and you have to do this, and you have to wear this, and you can't wear this. Anything that sort of requires you to do that, they're against it. So if we survey Japanese and we say, how many of you are Buddhist? everyone will say yes, pretty much. If you ask them, how many of you are Shinto? Guess what? Most people will say yes again. So now you have a religious population that's nearly twice as much as the actual population of the country. And yet, when you ask them, how against organized religion are you? Most of them will say yes again. It's very weird. So how do we, square this circle? Or how do we make this square circle? We look at what it means to be a Buddhist in Japan. And the closest example that I can get for you to very basically understand this is a cultural Christian. So if we take a country like the US and Australia, and Christmas is not around the corner, but down the road and around the corner, I'll celebrate Christmas, but I'm not a Christian. But it's my culture. I'm not against it. I love it. I like it more than New Year. So that is a cultural thing. So for Japanese, their Buddhist and Shinto devotion is not one of, yes, there's prayer, yes, there's going to the temple, but it doesn't affect their morals, their diet, or the way they conduct themselves. It has no impact on their real life. They just go through the motions culturally, as I do in celebrating Christmas. I'll give you a funny example. A couple of weeks ago, my brother-in-law, he has a big, he has chainsaws and tools, and he has even what's it called? A digger, that digs tree stumps out of the ground and stuff. He came and did some work here with me, and we had to cut down some trees. And he went, oh! I'm like, what? What's wrong? And he goes, I forgot something. I'm like, oh no, he forgot the chainsaw. He forgot the salt. I've got salt. Oh, you've got salt? Yeah, I've got salt. Great. We couldn't cut down the trees until we purified the ground with salt. Now, he's not religious, but this is just one of those cultural things that they do. It's like not giving a Christmas present in July. He's going to pour some salt on the ground, then he's going to cut the trees down. Why? Because for him, culturally, there's a spirit in the tree, and we have to apologize to the tree and the ground for cutting it down. And it's important to him, but it's not, for him, a religious belief. He doesn't really believe it. He'll say it. Like if I said to him, I wouldn't, but if I said to him, do you really, and I have said this to people, do you really believe that there's a God in that tree? No, I don't. But I'm still going to go through that habit, that cultural process before I cut the tree down. I'm happy to cut the tree down. I don't have a problem cutting it down. But I want to make sure that I do all the things. And I think if Japanese learned that some Christians and some Muslims and some Hindus and are all like that, that number would drop. But I think that they feel that when asked, what do you think about Islam? What do you think about Catholics? What do you think about Hindus? The Japanese are going to say, no, I don't like it. I don't like the way that they have to wear this and they have to do this, but you have to salt the ground. No, I don't have to do it. I just do it out of habit. So it's interesting. It's different. Again, probably a good example of how we're all hypocritical. I think that Ava, there is a little bit of the respective nature in there, but I don't know if it's actually a real concern for nature. One of the things that I've noticed about Japan is that they're, bonsai. They're really into modifying nature into the shape that they want it to be. The amount of concrete on the side of mountains is incredible because they just want to make that mountain better. You know, so I don't know if it's a real respect rather than, you know, I don't know. There's a lot of married rocks. So you can travel around Japan and you'll see from time to time on the shore 2 big boulders. There's not that many, there's a few. And there'll be a big rope between them, joining them, and those rocks are married. What are your thoughts on citizenship, statelessness, and citizenship revocation? Philosophically, I think we should all be citizens of the world. Practically, that's not possible. I think you should be able to have multiple citizenship. I believe that I can be loyal to Japan and loyal to Australia as well. I don't think it has to be one or the other. Citizenship revocation is something that is actually something that people didn't know is a real thing. And I know it's a real thing, and I didn't think it was a real thing, but I know it's a real thing because about 20 or something years ago, an Australian was revoked of his citizenship for unaliving someone. He'd been in Australia since he was a baby. Like his parents brought him over from, it might have been Kosovo, Serbia, Bosnia. It was during that time. And he as a teenager, or an adult, he committed that crime. He went to prison. When he was released, they revoked his citizenship. So they took it away, and now he only had his whatever citizenship it was. I think it was Serbia. And he was sent there, and he'd never actually been there. He couldn't speak the language. And there was a big debate in Australia as to whether revoking citizenship was cool or not. And I mean, I think it's pretty uncool to revoke someone's citizenship, but I know that countries do reserve the right to do it. That is a thing. And citizenship also is something that is not modern, but the way we experience citizenship is quite modern. This idea that you are born in this place, and so now you're a citizenship, is a very modern thing, and I think we're still working our way through it. Millions of people are stateless? Really? Shit, I didn't know that. Millions of people are stateless. I don't know. Millions of people are stateless. I thought we'd pretty much boarded everything up. You mean that they're not documented? An individual has no citizenship to any country. Keep in mind the phenomena of statelessness where an individual has no citizenship to any country. According to the UNHCR, there are approximately 10 million people who are citizens of no country. Yeah, right. Well, I think that should be sorted out. Do construction workers also do that? Huh? Oh, do construction workers also do the rituals? Yes, they do. He is a construction worker. That's his real job. And so, yes, he has a big bag of salt. Like when he came over again with his salt, it was a big bag of salt. It was like, yeah, they do that. Oh, thank you for following Cigarette Milk. Yeah, so they do that when they do construction work. Okay, I have a friend who is a priest. He inherited the job of priest from his father, and the temple that he lives at with his family, he's married with kids, and he runs the temple there. It's a Buddhist temple. He spent 7 years living in a Buddhist another Buddhist temple to do his training to become a priest. And he lives there through the authority of the city that grants him the right to be there, and his son will be the next priest. They have another shrine there that is a Shinto shrine. So Shinto and Buddhism are separate religions, and in some cases they're in the same place. So he's not the priest of the Shinto shrine, but he maintains it as part of his duties as the Buddhist priest. This is how Japanese regard religion. It's a cultural thing, not a doctrine. It's not a way of life. It's part of the culture. So if that helps explain that a little bit. So he can be the devoted Buddhist priest. He likes a drink though. Devoted Buddhist priest, but also maintains the separate religions shrine as well at the same time, and participates in the events with them. And it's all the same people. Like it's all the people of the community. So it's like, I don't know how to put it in a Christian sense. It'd be like, yeah, Catholics are not a good example. It'd be, I don't know I can't think of how to put it in a Christian sense. Could it be like being Presbyterian and then also going to a non-denominational church? Doesn't really work. Did you paint the picture behind you, TikTok mama? No, there is no picture behind me. These are, actually, I didn't paint it, but I did approve it. And I had an artist realize this for me and have these put on books. And this is a set of blank page books that you can buy on Amazon. So if you want to, please go and buy them. Oh, great. Well, you can get them. Just go to my bio. If you click on there, there's a link. And I think they're on sale now for about $24.99 for the set of 3. And there's another set underneath, and they're even cheaper. And they're blank. Like they're real books, but they're for decoration. And you can write in them if you so wish. And I think she might be on another live. Oh, okay. Right. Interesting. Okay. Oh, I'd love to go sailing. I keep turning down offers to join sailing teams. It's too much. So the last time I went sailing, I nearly died. Like I literally was caught in a storm and was sitting there on my little perch thinking this could well be the end. And I decided I'm not going with that captain anymore because he shouldn't have gone out. He asked me, should we go? And I said, yeah. But it was horrific. And then I lost a pair of, what are they called? Oh, I've forgotten what they're called now. The pants that go right up to here. I lost a pair of those Overboard, and they're like expensive. We knew a storm was coming, and we thought that we could ride it out and it was horrific. It was really, really bad. And it was so bad that we had a tiny little bit of sail out. And so we were like waders, yeah. They're called something else. But yeah, it was, oh man, it was scary. And the boat was, what's a 32-foot boat? So it wasn't huge. It wasn't small, but man, it was crazy. It was crazy. I never want to do that again.
If you're still here, honestly, you have no idea how much it helps if you subscribe. I'll keep these coming.